You're listening to Around the Northwest now. In every province and every county in Ireland, GAA grounds are a cornerstone of our culture and community, and they're steeped in history. Now Humphrey Kelleher, who himself is steeped in GAA history and culture, has created a record of 101 GAA county grounds in every corner of the country. And Humphrey is GAA to the core. He has a particular passion for hurling because he managed the Dublin senior hurling team back in the noughties. Also represented his native Waterford in both hurling and football at various levels. And he joins us now on both Zoom and also online. If I can just get to let me see now if I could just get to speak to Humphrey without any background interference, that is, which hopefully we can get sorted, because it's a great book. And one of the reasons that it is so good is that there's an aerial shot of, I think, nearly all the grounds, and has Humphrey obviously on board with using a drone, because there's and it's not every ground that we're familiar with, or people who go there regularly will be familiar with what it looks like from an aerial perspective. But all the grounds, as far as I understand it, all the grounds featured in the book have had a shot taken from above, and hopefully we can join Humphrey now to tell us a bit more. Humphrey, can you hear me?
I can indeed, John. Looking forward to having our little chat.
Yeah, just chatting there about the drone footage and these grounds. I mean, they're great to go. You go to a championship game during the summer, and it's great and all the rest of it, and great seeing filled up with spectators. But to see these grounds empty and from above, some of them look really spectacular, and there's some beautiful settings.
They're absolutely, they make the book, John, as far as I can concerned, because now the photograph you see in the book at the moment, that was about the third or fourth time I had to go and take those photographs. I would have visited Donegal. I probably know Donegal more than I would in my own county in the last couple of months and years. But it was a great journey to go around to all of these grounds, John, and just take an unusual photograph that incorporated the surrounding areas. If it was a river or a church or a landmark that people wouldn't be aware that's close to the ground. So I think the book showed that.
Well, the three grounds that you feature here in Donegal, there's two of them beside rivers and one of them beside the sea, Father Tierney Park and Ballyshannon. And of the three grounds, I think the setting for Father Tierney Park is the most spectacular, because you can see the sea and the mountains in the background.
Yeah, that was 4 times, John. 4 times to go to Ballyshannon.
It was worth it.
Well, I think so, but ironically, the best photograph I got of that was when they were developing the pitch, but there are no goalposts on the pitch. We had to state that, but I don't think people noticed that at the outset. But I think it's the environment in which it is in the rock area there in Ballyshannon. And looking out to the sea. But it is a beautiful setting. And Ballyshannon, as you know, is Tierney Park, after a great, great man who had a sad ending. But and the development of that ground is going on at the moment, and I think it might come back to its former glory.
Yeah, you listed as one of the most scenic grounds in the country. And you mentioned there Father Tierney. He was from Monaghan, but was a curate in Ballyshannon, and then left to go to a mission in China. But as you say, it came to a sad end.
He did. He, as you say, rightly say, he was born in Clones, and he was in the Columban Fathers, and he went on the missions to China in the 1920s, the mid-1920s, and sadly, John, he was kidnapped by a crowd of, I suppose, communist renegades as such, and he was the ransom was paid for his release, and on his way back to the mission, he was kidnapped by another group of renegades in China, and sadly he was tortured and came to a very sad end, and he died in China. But he's somebody that people, they go to Tierney Park, but nobody knows who the man is. And I think this is a lovely opportunity to remind people of who he actually was. And I think there is a photograph of him in the book as well.
Yeah, there is indeed. And you outline the stories behind the naming of the parks in each case. And I mean, the details, they're not too long, but you have a few paragraphs about, and a lot of them named after, it could be clergymen, it might be politicians, it might be local landowners, but there's a little bit of info about whoever the parks are named after.
Yeah, I would have customized that, John, if there was somebody who were rather famous, like Pádraig Pearse or Countess Markovich. I didn't write an awful lot about them simply because there are books written of those people. So I try to focus on the people like Sean McCool or Father Tierney, as we say, or Cardinal O'Donnell up in Letterkenny, so as people would know who those people were. They were great people. But to me, they're the people whose names are, they're on the grounds. But I would go back further, John, to, as I call them, the real heroes of the GA, the people who actually bought that piece of land on which the ground is now a beautiful stadium today. But and the names of the people, fine, but a lot of them had very little to do with the purchase and development of the ground itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you do outline the people who had the foresight to see that a park was needed, a ground was needed, and to make that purchase. And you outline how the field was bought, and then some of the developments along the way to what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, that took an awful lot of, I suppose, courage by people who didn't have a penny, John. They just did not have any money, but they raised money in lots of different ways. And they were very innovative in the ways that they went and got the money, because the GAA, who ultimately became the beneficiaries of these grounds, they weren't really supportive in the very early days. So people had to go and they had to have dances and bingo sessions, and there are various activities down around the country. They would have cut wood for selling during the winter time, sold Christmas trees. One of them actually had a film show, I think it's in Enniskillen, to raise money. So there was a huge amount of development money raised simply because people went out and made it happen. And I try to recall those people. Interestingly, you said earlier, John, it's not really a comprehensive, it's a concise history of grounds rather than the comprehensive one. And, if you're writing a comprehensive history in those, I think the book could be instead of 264, it'd be 2,000. However, we try to get as much as we could in about the development, the purchase, and then the development of the ground as it is today.
Yeah, but each of them has served as a county ground at some stage.
Indeed, and that was the criteria for getting into the book. You would have to have a county ground status, as you know, Ballybuffet is the main county ground in Donegal at the moment. And prior to that, there would have been O'Donnell Park would have been a county ground, and I think there was a secondary county ground at the moment. And of course, Ballyshannon would have had its heyday. But I think Ballyshannon is coming back, and they're going to do marvellous developments in that particular area there. And Tom Daly is doing tremendous work in that pitch.
Right, yeah, well, a fabulous setting. But as well as the grounds here in Ireland, you also include grounds in London and New York. Yeah,
I think, well, obviously, the diaspora couldn't be forgotten about. And there's a marvellous man from Ockabas in Leitrim, John, Tony McGovern, who has put quite a lot of money into the ground in Ruislip in London, and it's called McGovern Park. Now, the ground in New York. It's been developed. The pitch is actually owned by Manhattan College, so the GAA don't own it. But the buildings and the clubhouses are now being redeveloped there at the moment. So there's great work being done, literally all over the world. But they're the two main ones in New York and in London.
Well, as I mentioned, the three grounds here in Donegal that you include are Father Tierney Park, also O'Donnell Park, and it was another clergyman whose name was given to O'Donnell Park. A cardinal.
A cardinal. I mean, you go fairly high quality in Donegal, I can assure you. It's not just anybody. Cardinal Joseph O'Donnell, he was actually born in the 20s. And he was a real Donegal man. And he went to school in Letterkenny. And believe it or not, John, he became a bishop at the age of 31. Wow. He was obviously a very, very bright man. And he was extraordinarily involved in the GAA and advocated an awful lot of support for the GAA at the time. But it is, I suppose, testament to the quality of the ground with the quality of the man after whom it is named.
There you go. And finally, McCool Park, named after John James McCool, who became involved in the Republican movement after he saw the Bloody Sunday massacre in Croke Park.
He did, and most of the people, John, as you can imagine, they say to me, McCool Park, oh, Fionn McCool. Uh-huh. And I think there's an education there in some part of people's history lesson that it was Sean or John McCool. And again, he was a very, very bright man. He went into train as a teacher, but I'm not sure whether he went through with it or not. But he came involved, as you rightly say, in the Republican movement, and he involved, I suppose, in the chief of staff of the IRA, and he became, obviously, he became indoctrinated in that philosophy, and he was he did serve time in Dublin or in the Donegal County Board as secretary, and he died at a very young age, at 48. But he went through a tough time with many hunger strikes that he went on for his beliefs.
And another picture that stands out for me is the one at Celtic Park, because you have, it's again, you have the river in the background, in this case the Foyle, and it's absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, that was one of my favourites, John, I have to admit. There's, and what was lovely, I think, about that photograph, you can see the Brandywell just below it, and then you can see the Greyhound track below that again. And then, and the beauty about that photograph is it's looking over towards Donegal, John, so it can't be bad when you see
no, even if it's in the background.
You see the top of the photograph, the hills of Donegal are in the distance, but it certainly shows the Foyle River coming around, meandering in around the ground.
Well, you've obviously put in a lot of work, because to get the background, not just of the people that a lot of these grounds were named after, but also getting all the information about how the fundraising was done, and the bit of history of the ground, how it came to be what it is today, and all included in the book, and great to see as well. So it's out now. It's called A Place to Play, available in all good bookshops and a few bad ones. And would make a great gift for a GAA lover in the house, for sure.
Well, I'm pleased with it. It took me 10 years to do it, and I have to acknowledge the contribution of a very good Ulsterman there, Donal McAnallen, who was very, very supportive and very knowledgeable, and helped me quite a good bit with the Ulster grounds. So shout out for Donal.
Good. Well, listen, Humphrey, thanks for having a wee chat with us, and the best luck with the book. Well done.
Thank you very much indeed, John. I appreciate it.